When looking at this irreplaceable, unique, one-of-a-kind medieval city core dating back to the 9th century AD, city leadership had asked themselves a crucial question. Where do I put my SUV?
Turns out, invaluable historical heritage sites are the perfect places to store your car. The romantic, millennium-old winding streets offer an exciting variety of parking spaces. The centuries-old Baroque squares, formerly home to bustling markets and high medieval culture, are now proud displays of contemporary Prague culture. The same can be said about the Baroque side streets, no less ornate than the squares, offering a window into the soul of 21st century Prague. It has been said that Prague is an utterly dysfunctional city, unable to implement any positive changes, with its Kafkaesque institutions slowly collapsing under their own weight. This is a false sentiment. Changes are, in fact, on the way. For example, in terms of traffic policy, the meeting to determine the date of the session on which they decide what cookies to serve on the first 20 rounds of consultations before the preliminary session preceding the initial rounds of talks is already scheduled for the year 2046. In the meantime, Prague's castle remains a symbol of the values and competence of its leadership. But of course, Prague is more than just a castle utilized as a parking lot.
On the other side of the Vltava river we see Old Town, and behind it is New Town, named so due to it having been built in the 14th century. The two sites are linked by the famous Charles Bridge, a masterpiece of Baroque engineering and architecture built in 1402. Now Prague's leadership had asked themselves, how could it best utilize a medieval 6 centuries old bridge in the 21st century? Well, it turns out 6 centuries old UNESCO protected medieval bridges make for great covered parking lots. We're almost in Old Town. We just need to cross under this exquisite Baroque bridge tower overlooking the Baroque facades of Old Town, right in front of the Baroque pedestrian intersection.
The road we're crossing right now is the famous Smetana embankment. The presence of cars on this road is a recurring point of conflict between people and the city leadership. Proponents of traffic calming had argued that it's likely not a good idea to let a dozen people in cars hold up hundreds of pedestrians and tram passengers at a time. The city leadership used to respond to that argument that this state of affairs is necessary as those dozen drivers do not have a convenient alternative route. In order to solve this issue, a massive highway tunnel complex was built under the castle, costing $2.7 billion in today's money, at long last providing a quick, convenient alternative to the embankment. Thus, proponents of traffic calming were able to once again raise the issue of restricting car traffic on the embankment in favor of public transit and pedestrians. City Hall was quick to issue a response to this renewed request, later amending it with an additional statement. It seems that limiting car traffic on Prague's Smetana embankment will remain a task for future generations. We penetrate into Old Town, marveling at the astounding architecture surrounding us, the beautiful facades, St. Clement's Cathedral, the Thymasar Salon next to St. Clement's Cathedral, with a tasteful animatronic clown demon above it waving a flag that reads "I love relax" with outdoor Christmas lights attached for better visibility. However, as we were visiting during the off-season, unfortunately we were unable to get the full cultural experience this street offers.
This street is usually a great place to immerse yourself in Prague culture. We are just at the foot of St. Clement's Cathedral, and behind me in the corner there's a promotional rickshaw advertising the Thymasar Salon by St. Clement's Cathedral. In this pedestrian zone there is usually a Dodge Ram American pickup truck parked illegally on most days of the year, though it doesn't seem to be here on this very day.
Walking down these historical streets, we are enamored by the vibrant, authentic culture of Old Town. Full of people, all of them locals, in their respective home countries. Stores line the streets, offering basic necessities for daily life like absinthe and foreign currency.
But this cultural epicenter of the Czech Republic is not without its problems. Short-term rentals on an industrial scale are increasingly taking over the local housing market.
But what are the locals' views on the spread of Airbnb, and what do they think of the rumors of Eastern oligarchs buying up the local housing stock to operate entire residential blocks as short-term rentals?
These are the questions we wanted to pose to Old Town's homeowners, though unfortunately nobody on our staff spoke Russian or Chinese.
We gradually leave the charm of Old Town behind us as we enter New Town. We eventually surface at Wenceslas Square, the main public space of the Czech Republic.
The square is currently under reconstruction. Before the works, the square functioned as the nation's main ceremonial parking lot. And over there we see the statue of Saint Wenceslas, scanning the square with a stern look, meant to symbolize the difficult, often futile search for a free parking spot in Prague when trying to park your third car in the city center.
The reconstruction of Wenceslas Square will bring back the tram line that used to extend all the way to the bottom of the square, eliminated by Soviet leadership in 1980. Following the reconstruction, trams will return to the upper half of the square, with plans to restore tracks on the lower half having been successfully blocked by Prague's conservative leadership. Beyond the statue of Saint Wenceslas stands the Czech National Museum. In order to help highlight this important building, a 6 to 8 lane urban freeway was built around it.
This is the North-South Prague urban freeway, built by the Soviets to make invasions easier in case locals start wanting things like freedom of speech or democracy. Now, there have been multiple attempts to calm traffic on this freeway by reducing the number of lanes. Opponents of traffic calming, however, argue that reducing the number of lanes on this highway built by the Czechoslovakian Communist Party would be an instance of communism.
A stateless, classless road with no currency.
This road has been the site to numerous protests by Last Generation Prague, advocating for a citywide 30 km/h speed limit. Their actions would see one of the 6 to 8 lanes closed from traffic during rush hour, leading to a massive traffic jam affecting thousands of average working people.
Although their protests are a rare occurrence, we seemed to be in luck.
And yes, ladies and gentlemen, we seem to be in luck. There does seem to be a protest by Last Generation Prague just over there. We were this lucky to have caught it just at this time, so we are going to go check it out.
We rush to the scene, hoping to catch these selfish, narcissistic scum red-handed. These vile eco-fascists, selfishly holding up thousands of regular, working people in traffic jams during rush hour.
So we've been looking for the Last Generation protesters right here, but we can't seem to find them, even though the highway is completely congested. So we believe that these green communists have changed tactics in the meantime, opting to show up for their protest in their car instead of on foot. Truly a vile display of selfishness from these radical activists.
Recovering from the experience, we decide to calm our nerves with culture. Lucky for us, just on the other side of the urban freeway stands the Czech National Museum's new building.
Would you like to visit the Czech National Museum just over there? This way. This passageway leads not just to the Czech National Museum, but also to the Czech National Opera. Julius Caesar in Egypt, I hear, is the latest opera piece that can be viewed there. And there we can already see the yellow columns. Those are the Czech National Opera. Behind it is the Czech National Museum's new building. So just through this underpass, careful, the puddles of feces all around. That column is used as a public toilet, as we can see, and it smells like that too, just so we can, reconnect our core human primal nature before witnessing the most important cultural relics of the Czech Republic and/or an opera piece just over there. Here we can see the opera visitors have left a can of Pilsner Urquell on the sidewalk. They must have been in a hurry. Always be on time when going to an opera, as it's considered to be very bad manners to be late. And you might even have to throw away your beer can on the way. Once you're done enjoying the greatest cultural relics and artifacts of the Czech Republic, you can continue your cultural experience here on the outside, looking at this SUV parked in the forbidden zone. Over there, there is a smart car advertising a nightclub, which has been left here for quite some time. As you can see, there are stickers on the window. On the other side, there are tags, and there is dust collecting all over the place. And just over there, there is the Rent a Hummer, a promotional Hummer, which has been left there for the past 2 years to advertise a rental service locally.
We head out towards the center of New Town in search of greener pastures.
For the past few decades, the number of cars in Prague has been increasing constantly, which which is exacerbated by the fact that ever since 2020 or so, it is illegal to produce cars smaller than a Wehrmacht Panzer IV. Additionally, owning a car seems to get a distinct side effect of having to put it somewhere while not using it. Therefore, Prague leadership has been forced to come up with innovative solutions to store the ever-increasing number of neutral vehicles within its limits. Today, we would like to examine some of these solutions in person.
We are in Prague's 2nd district on EP Pavlova Square, where the Prague 2nd District City Hall had come up with an ingenious urban planning solution to be studied by urban planners across the globe.
The car-centric pedestrian zone.
But this isn't the only instance of Prague's urban planning brilliance by far.
We're standing on Horní Street in Prague's 4th district, where in 2022 the local city hall had turned most of its sidewalk into a parking lot, thereby gaining 15 additional parking spaces, arguing that locals wanted more parking spaces.
The locals had filed a lawsuit against the 4th District City Hall looking to take back their sidewalk from cars. Their lawsuit was successful, with the court ordering City Hall to eliminate the parking spaces. But this was not the end of the story.
City Hall has held firm in opposition to the locals' opposition to adding more parking spaces, arguing that the locals needed more parking spaces. They consequently tried to reintroduce sidewalk parking in defiance of the court's decision.
Locals sued City Hall again, with the court ordering City Hall for the 2nd time to remove parking spaces from the sidewalk. It remains to be seen what City Hall will do next.
Will Prague 4 City Hall be able to enact the people's will, even against the people's will? Only time will tell.
But other Prague districts have been far more creative in their quest for the creation of more urban parking lots in the year 2025. We are now in the 15th district of Prague on Sańkařská Street.
Over here we can see a number of ingenious solutions enacted by the local city hall to increase the number of parking spaces. So as a first step, the sidewalks on both sides were eliminated and turned into parking spaces. And just to the left of me, which is your right, there is a children's playground and some trees. The children's playground will be eliminated and these trees will be cut down in order to create even more parking spaces to incentivize an even greater use of automobiles. By the elimination of the children's playground and the cutting down of the trees, the district will gain 23 new parking spaces.
Locals have created a petition against the measure already passed by City Hall. It remains to be seen if Prague 15 will be more successful than Prague 4 in enacting the people's will against the people's will. But turning sidewalks and children's playgrounds into parking lots are not the only measures Prague has in store for us. A further pillar of Prague's urban planning policy is the complete lack of traffic rule enforcement.
The threat of actually enforcing the rules of the road has naturally made a lot of middle-aged men in large, expensive cars extremely upset. They worry that if the rules of the road suddenly applied to them as well, then lively streets such as this one would turn into urban hellscapes, like the ones in Amsterdam or Vienna.
However, some locals continue to entertain notions such as that drivers should abide by the rules of the road, further polarizing society by putting themselves in opposition to those who want to ignore them. In order to resolve this conflict, a compromise was struck by Prague City Hall. On one hand, drivers can break any traffic rule with impunity. On the other hand, pedestrians, cyclists and public transit users may shut up. Still, many of Prague's drivers continue to complain that they are, in fact, being oppressed. Drivers in Prague are indeed so oppressed that illegal drag races in the city center can only be held at night, whereby contestants block the main urban freeway leading into the center. The police haven't yet mustered the courage to intervene, preferring to watch from a safe distance.
Parking, traffic calming and pedestrian safety aren't the only hot-button issues in Prague, however. A further tumultuous point of contention is the question of urban cycling. Up until recently, plotting a safe bicycle route through Prague was a task impossible for average people. However, technology has now made this possible, as long as one can afford processing time on the IBM mainframe. Prague urban planning works much like alchemy, in that if you create something good, another good thing of equal value must be taken away. So here in front of Prague's second largest railway station, the city had created a pedestrian zone using these bollards, which is only occasionally violated by drivers. And so in exchange, in the next street over there, a bike lane was taken away to make more space for cars.
Yet another defeat for Stalinism in Prague, the city of progress. Of course, when Joseph Stalin first began building safe, separated bike paths in 1924, nobody could have suspected that those are, in fact, precursors to a totalitarian empire. Thankfully, Prague's leadership is always on edge, determined to stop such evils from ever setting foot within city limits. It's time for us to leave, so we head to Prague's central station, scheduled to be reconstructed sometime within the next 5 to 50 years. To that end, a large part of the currently indoors passenger hall is to be demolished to give way to a massive, open-air wooden pergola. However, some have questioned the design.
Thankfully, the concept of weather as such does not exist in Prague, with every single day of the year being a very pleasant 20 degrees Celsius, slightly sunny and no wind. I think the most frustrating thing about Prague, for me personally, is that everything is given for a great city, for an absolutely great city. The buildings are beautiful, the landmarks are there, it has plenty of history going back hundreds of years. And yet, when you look around on the streets, the city itself does not seem to acknowledge the fact that only about a quarter of its residents drive a car on a day-to-day basis. If you look at the average Prague streetscape, you would think that 90% of citizens drive a car. That is absolutely not the case. And I think Prague should take more steps to make its public spaces sort of more fair. But of course, the reason why Prague does not look like Vienna or Amsterdam has its own political reasons, of course. The city leadership, where conservatives are in the majority, have been blocking every single initiative to make the city more pedestrian-friendly, cycling-friendly, or even to just prioritize public transit, so that 2 people in cars cannot hold up 200 to 300 in trams or buses. All of these measures that would make Prague a more Western city have been consistently vetoed by the conservative, I suppose, majority. If Charles IV came back today and looked at the current sorry state of Prague, Charles IV could not make it to Prague Castle on the royal path. He would get run over. The current urban planning status quo in Prague is fundamentally anti-human, anti-culture, anti-history. Look at the castle, look at the state of Old Town, and especially New Town. Cars parked everywhere, all the streets are congested, dangerous. Kids cannot be let go on bicycles alone, which is a standard in every single capital Western city. Most of these places are just 3 or 4 bollards away from becoming really quality, human-friendly areas. The city is under conservative leadership. Conservative parties seem to hate walkable, cycling-friendly, pedestrian-friendly urban planning styles. Their ideal world is one where the inner city is just an Airbnb desert, it's just a short-term rental, a wasteland full of tourists, no one else, no locals, and everyone is living outside in the suburbs, in the satellites, in these like tiny, cheap bungalows, and everyone commutes in by car and then leaves in the evening. This has a number of notable negative effects on society. It atomizes people, it atomizes society, just individuals and families, as Margaret Thatcher would say. And I don't want anyone to take this as me criticizing Prague or criticizing the Czech people. That is not my goal at all. I would like to help improve things because obviously so far nothing has helped in Prague. I believe in a better Prague, and I believe consequently in a better Czech Republic. And I think one of the roads towards that is sound urban planning policy, which is the exact opposite of what Prague is doing right now. And my hope is that someone waking up finally in City Hall and realizing that this cannot go on any further, things need to change, and that in the end we will see a Prague which is truly a Western city as opposed to something out of a postcard of 1970s Turkmenistan.